What if innocence couldn't save you? What if being in the wrong place at the wrong time meant your life could be stolen? Not by criminals, but by the very community you trusted. This isn't just a Nigerian story. It's a true story about justice denied, about how rumor and fear can turn neighbors into executioners. They were 4 in number, bound by friendship, driven by dreams. But in 2012, rumor and rage turned their innocence into a death sentence. The world would come to know them as the ALU4. But before we begin, welcome to Behind the Verdict. If you want more real-life stories that uncover the truth and shed light on injustice, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. These young lives were not hardened criminals. They were not gangsters or robbers. They were simply students, ordinary young men with extraordinary dreams. There was Ugonna, only 18, a lively boy who loved music and dreamed of making it big someday. His friend said he could light up a room with a smile. Then came Lloyd Michael Toku, 19, passionate about hip-hop and rap. A young man whose voice carried his ambitions far beyond the university campus. Chiadika Biringa, 20, equally driven, was a calm one, the level-headed friend everyone leaned on. And finally, Tekena Elkanah, 21, tall and athletic, the loyal, kind-hearted, and deeply trusted friend. They studied at the University of Port Harcourt in Nigeria. They had families and friends who believed in them, and futures they were eager to build. But beneath this ordinary student life was a dangerous reality, a society where fear of crime was high, and jungle justice had become a quick answer. People believed that if you were accused, you were guilty, and guilt often meant death. In the early hours of October 5th, 2012, everything changed. The 4 young men entered ALU, a small community not far from the university. Their goal was simple: to recover a debt. One of them had lent money to someone in the community, and they went together to demand repayment. But suspicion is a deadly spark. Their presence drew attention. Whispers spread quickly that day, whispers that these boys were not students, but thieves. Someone claimed they had stolen. Others repeated it. Within minutes, rumor grew louder than truth, and then the mob formed. People rushed out of their homes. A crowd began to form, dozens of faces, then hundreds. The boys were confronted. Confused, they denied the accusations. They tried to explain, but in that moment, words rarely mattered. Some shouted insults, someone to the first punch, then another. These young students stood alone against a growing tide of anger. They pleaded. They begged for mercy. But mercy was not in the air that morning. Only bloodlust. Their shirts were torn. Their dignity stripped away. Beaten with sticks, planks, stones, anything the crowd could find. Every blow echoed with false belief that they were criminals. But they weren't. They were innocent. The crowd didn't care. The chants grew louder. Thieves, thieves. And then the unimaginable happened. Tires were thrown over their broken bodies. Petrol was poured. And as the world has seen in horrifying videos, they were set ablaze. The flames roared to life, devouring their young bodies. Their future ended abruptly, not in silence, but in flames. Perhaps the most haunting part of the story is not just the brutality, but the spectators, the people who stood by. Some laughed, some cheered, others recorded on their phones. Not one, not a single person, stepped forward to save them. Hundreds of eyes watched, hundreds of voices joined the chant, and yet none chose to stop the brutality. In that moment, silence was as deadly as fire. News of the killing spread fast. Shock waves ran to Nigeria. Families collapsed in grief. Parents who had sacrificed everything for education were handed the lifeless remains of their children. The world watched in horror as the videos circulated online. The boys became known not for their dreams, not for their achievements, but for the violence that ended their lives. There was outrage. There were protests, The name ALU4 became a national cry for justice. But for the families, justice did not come quickly. Court hearings dragged on. The pain of waiting became a second punishment for the grieving families. Families sat in courtrooms waiting to hear the truth spoken out loud, asking themselves if the system would ever value the lives of their children. Every adjournment, every delay, was a wound reopened. But in 2017, the verdict finally came. 3 men, ex-Sergeant Lucky Orji, Ikechukwu Luis Amadi, and David Chinasabaga, were sentenced to death for their roles in the killings. Others received life sentences. To many, this was justice. But to the families, it was justice delivered too late. No sentence, no judgment could ever bring back Lloyd, Chiadika, Ugonna, or Tekena. No punishment could erase the flames that consumed their lives or silence the haunting memories of their final screams. Their story is not only Nigeria's tragedy, it's the world's tragedy. Because the danger of mob justice, of violence fueled by lies, exists everywhere. It reminds us of what happens when truth is silenced, when compassion is abandoned, and when justice is replaced by rage. And it asks us one haunting question. What would you do if you were in that crowd? Their memory is not just a cautionary tale. It is a call for us to choose humanity, even when the crowd demands otherwise, because being innocent should always be enough. This is their story, a story the world must never forget.